1 hour ago, judge issues arrest warrants for J-Lo after Natania Reuben testifies in Diddy case. Before we begin, viewer discretion is advised. The following narrative, drawn from sworn testimonies, sealed court filings, and first-hand witness accounts, reconstructs the harrowing descent of Sean Diddy Combs and Jennifer Lopez, once the king and queen of hip-hop glamour, now entangled in one of the entertainment industry's darkest and most explosive criminal scandals. In 1999, a gun was fired inside a Manhattan nightclub. 3 people were hit. One of them, Natania Reuben, would carry that wound, both physical and psychological, for the rest of her life. At the time, all eyes turned to one-person rapper Jamal Shine Barrow, who was swiftly arrested, tried, and sentenced to 10 years in prison. But over 2 decades later, a very different story is emerging in a federal courtroom, and it's threatening to rewrite everything we thought we knew. At the center of it all now, not Shine. Not just Diddy, but Jennifer Lopez. The same Jennifer Lopez, once hailed as Jenny from the block, now being named in court filings, old testimonies, and viral allegations as more than just a bystander to that fateful night. It started with Cassie Ventura. Her lawsuit against Sean Diddy Combs in late 2023 tore open a sealed vault of abuse, manipulation, and control. Her claims weren't just about private trauma, they were about systems operations and a hidden world operating under the guise of stardom. But then came a name no one expected to hear again: Natania Reuben. Her voice had been mostly forgotten in public memory, but in court she came back with conviction. Reuben testified that the truth about the 1999 shooting had been buried intentionally. She didn't just accuse Diddy, she implicated Jennifer Lopez. And with that, the entire narrative of the case shifted. According to Reuben and other emerging witnesses, J-Lo wasn't simply Diddy's girlfriend on that infamous night. She was allegedly his accomplice. Reuben stated in court that Lopez smuggled the firearm into the club. After the shots rang out, she and Diddy orchestrated a cover-up pointing the finger at Shine, the youngest and most disposable person in the room. It worked. Shine went to prison. Diddy and Lopez walked free. And in the years that followed, their careers skyrocketed. Now it all threatens to crash. Court documents allege that Lopez not only helped conceal evidence, but also may have married Diddy secretly around that time to avoid testifying against him. A legal loophole. A strategic maneuver. Not love, but survival. And if that wasn't enough, Cassie's testimony brought new horror into the spotlight. She told the court that Diddy once handed her a loaded gun outside a club and ordered her to carry it inside. She was terrified. She cried, but she obeyed. That moment, raw with emotion, made headlines. But the implication was chilling. It wasn't the first time he had used women as gun mules. And now, with fresh testimony and witness corroboration, Lopez's involvement in the 1999 shooting looks less like a youthful mistake and more like a calculated act of complicity. The term ride or die took on a much darker meaning. Rodney Lil Rod Jones, another accuser, claimed that J-Lo's actions weren't incidental. According to him, she played a central role in shielding Diddy from consequences. Whether it was manipulating witnesses, obscuring evidence, or misleading the media, the image was clear. Jennifer Lopez wasn't just standing by her man. She was helping hide the bodies figuratively and perhaps literally. And now, court whispers are becoming federal roars. Law enforcement sources confirmed to the press that the 1999 shooting is being reopened as part of the broader federal investigation into Diddy's empire. J-Lo's name appears in connection with those files. A judge has reportedly signed off on arrest warrants. Confidential, sealed, but real. The public is stunned. But for those who've been following the Diddy trial closely, the pattern isn't new. It's the same story Cassie told Control Coercion Cover-Up. She described how Diddy paid for everything in her life, her house, her car, her phone, and used those things as leverage. When she disappointed him, he took them back. When she resisted, he punished her. He introduced her to freak-off sexual events involving drug strangers and surveillance. She was only 21. At first, she said she wanted to please him. Later, she needed drugs to get through it. Eventually, it broke her. And through it all, Cassie said Diddy planned everything, from outfits to lighting to camera angles. It wasn't chaos, it was choreography. And J-Lo? She dated Diddy first. She saw it all. According to multiple witnesses, including Cassie J-Lo, not only knew about the freak-offs, she allegedly attended them. She was reportedly seen at one such party where a 13-year-old girl was coerced into participation. Another woman, Misha, testified that she locked eyes with J-Lo during a freak-off, silently begging for help. Lopez, she said, did nothing, just watched. Even J-Lo's ex-husband, Ojani Noah, added fuel to the fire. He claimed she was deeply involved in Diddy's inner world, that she knew what was happening behind those closed doors, that she wasn't just complicit, she was comfortable. The implications go beyond criminal, they're personal. Reports emerged that Ben Affleck was shown video footage by the FBI allegedly involving Lopez at one of Diddy's freak-off parties. Sources say the moment destroyed their rekindled marriage. The timeline fits. Lopez and Affleck stopped appearing together. Public body language shifted. And now, their relationship is over. A powerful man sees something he can't unsee. And Jennifer Lopez finds herself not on the red carpet, but on the run. As part 1 ends, one thing is clear: the Diddy trial is no longer just about one man's crimes. It's about a network, about decades of silence, and about who stood by, smiling, while others were destroyed. J-Lo's mugshot may not exist yet, but the testimony has already rendered a verdict in the court of public opinion. And it's only the beginning. When the news of J-Lo's potential arrest broke, the internet exploded. Not just because of who she is, but because of how long she managed to stay out of the frame. For years, she danced between scandals, always pristine, always untouched. But now everything felt different. People weren't just digging into her past, they were dissecting it. Suddenly, everyone remembered the mugshots from 1999. Shine's mugshot was standard, taken at the precinct in street clothes. Puffy's was against a concrete wall. But J-Lo's hers was different. She was photographed against a bulletin board, dressed in old t-shirts. Reuben pointed out the absurdity. Y'all really think they were out clubbing in that at Christmas? No, that wasn't fashion, it was damage control. From the very start, someone had been trying to rewrite the visuals, change the optics, shift the narrative, and for the most part, they succeeded. The public never questioned it. Until now. Inside the courtroom, the narrative shifted once again. More testimonies flooded in. Gene Deal, the former head of Bad Boy Security, testified that Diddy admitted to framing Shine. "I hate that," expletive Diddy allegedly told him. It was personal, calculated, cold. According to Deal, witnesses were handpicked, coached, and manipulated. Some were paid, others were threatened. J-Lo's name came up not as a passerby, but as a participant. Someone who helped make sure the right people said the right things, and the wrong person went to prison. Outside the courthouse, the public began connecting dots. Social media users dug up old clips. Tabloids posted timelines. Conspiracy turned into consensus. One tweet went viral. We all thought she was the alibi. Turns out she might have been the plan. The phrase stuck, especially as more women came forward. One of them, Misha, described how she was assaulted at a freak-off event while J-Lo watched in silence. Another, speaking under anonymity, claimed that J-Lo not only attended multiple parties, but once coordinated a guest list. And then came the kicker, an alleged leaked list from a private jet manifest in 2000. Among the names, Diddy, Cassie, a minor, and Jennifer Lopez. The dots weren't just connecting, they were drawing a map. The prosecution leaned into it. They introduced a forensic analysis of communication logs from 1999. J-Lo had made multiple calls to a burner phone later linked to Diddy's assistant. 2 of those calls happened within 30 minutes of the shooting. A security camera from outside the club showed her tossing something into a trash can as they fled. That bin never recovered. But the footage remained. The defense objected to speculation. The judge allowed the footage, and the jury leaned forward. Meanwhile, whispers of an arrest warrant being issued for Lopez circulated fast. Sources close to federal investigators hinted that Lopez had ignored multiple subpoenas, that she'd traveled abroad shortly after Cassie's lawsuit went public, that she was now in a country with no extradition treaty. Suddenly, the story changed again. This wasn't just about guilt, it was about evasion. A former FBI agent appearing on cable news said bluntly, "She's acting like someone who's scared, and usually when people run, they're running from the truth." The statement echoed across talk shows and TikTok feeds, and for the first time in years, Jennifer Lopez was no longer untouchable. Then came the alleged marriage bombshell. Jaguar Wright, a singer known for exposing celebrity secrets, claimed J-Lo and Diddy married quietly in 1999. Not for love, but for strategy. If true, the move would have made Lopez legally immune from testifying against him. It was a maneuver used more often in organized crime circles than Hollywood, but it fit. A marriage license was never found, but neither was a firm denial. Lopez's team remained silent. Diddy's camp issued no comment, and the public, once enamored with the couple, now looked at them with suspicion. The case deepened with Oyani Noah's resurfaced interview. He claimed Lopez wasn't just a passive observer at Diddy's freak-offs. She was, in his words, in the room, in the act, and in the power structure. He accused her of knowing what happened to Cassie and others, of ignoring it, of benefiting from the silence. He stopped short of calling her a predator, but made it clear she was not innocent. And once again, Lopez said nothing. By the second week of public fallout, the courtroom had become a theater. Outside, protesters gathered with signs, "Protect survivors, to prosecute the powerful," and chillingly, J-Lo knew. Inside, Cassie's emotional testimony resonated deeply. She described being young, scared, controlled, and when asked who else knew what was happening, she paused, then said one word: everyone. As part 2 draws to a close, the illusion of Jennifer Lopez, the clean image, the perfect trajectory, is no longer sustainable. She may not be behind bars. She may not yet be charged. But in the eyes of millions, she's already on trial, and the verdict is rapidly forming. By the time federal agents confirmed that Jennifer Lopez was officially a person of interest in the reopened 1999 nightclub shooting investigation, the public had already made up its mind. J-Lo wasn't just at the wrong place at the wrong time. She was part of it. And now, the fairy tale was cracking one headline at a time. Inside the courtroom, the mood had shifted. It wasn't about the glitz, the red carpets, the award speeches anymore. It was about who protected whom, who stayed silent, and who got sacrificed. Cassie's cross-examination had been brutal, but she never broke. She recounted not just abuse, but patterns, cycles, scripts. "You didn't just survive him," the prosecutor said. "You outlived the machine." Her voice shook, but she nodded. And in that moment, the jury wasn't just hearing a victim. They were witnessing a survivor. Meanwhile, a private testimony was leaked. It belonged to a former Diddy bodyguard, only identified as Witness C. He claimed that in 2001, after the dust settled from the shooting trial, Diddy hosted a party. Not for celebration, but for closure. Lopez was allegedly there. According to Witness C, she was told, "You played your part perfectly." It wasn't a toast. It was an absolution. Public trust collapsed. Fans stopped streaming her music. Movie studios quietly shelved projects. Brand sponsors went dark. Comment sections filled with disbelief and anger. How could someone so admired be so involved? The contrast was brutal. Cassie shaking on the stand, recounting how she was forced to watch her own trauma replayed on tape. J-Lo silent, in a villa somewhere overseas. One begging to be heard, the other nowhere in sight. And then came the voice no one expected shine. After years of silence, Jamal Shine Barrow broke his quiet with a formal statement from Belize, where he now serves as a member of parliament. "I was betrayed," he wrote. I took the fall so they could rise. But the truth is not a secret anymore. He didn't name Lopez directly. He didn't have to. The next domino fell fast. A civil suit filed by Natania Reuben was reopened. She amended the claim to include Lopez as a co-conspirator. Her attorneys cited Reuben's original injuries. She was shot in the face, as well as new testimony suggesting Lopez had a deliberate and knowing role in transporting the weapon. It was more than enough for a judge to sign an arrest order. Technically sealed, but already leaked. Panic rippled through Lopez's camp. Her team issued a brief statement. Ms. Lopez maintains her innocence and will cooperate fully with any legal proceedings. But cooperation wasn't what the court wanted. They wanted presence, and she was still gone. Multiple sources claimed she was seen in Dubai, then in the Maldives, and possibly even in Albania, a nation with no extradition treaty to the US. People called it a self-imposed exile. Others called it what it was, a flight from justice. Meanwhile, inside the trial, Diddy's own words were played aloud. Voicemails, old recordings, snippets of conversations from seized hard drives. One message in particular brought the room to a standstill. I told her, "If you carry it, we're safe." She said, "Okay." No names, no dates. But everyone in the courtroom knew who she was, and Lopez's name didn't need to be said. It was already etched in every page of the case file. As testimony continued, a psychologist took the stand. She described the mindset of enablers. How individuals within toxic systems begin as bystanders but quickly become collaborators. The longer you stay silent, she said, the more you start to believe silence is safe. The line echoed online. It became a headline, and it defined the Lopez defense without ever calling her guilty. Meanwhile, a new voice emerged, Misha. Her second public statement was even more devastating than the first. She described how at one freak-off party, she saw J-Lo laugh during a moment of unspeakable abuse. She didn't say it was malice. She said it was normal. She didn't look shocked, Misha said. She looked like it was Tuesday, and still, Lopez remained quiet. But silence in a case like this speaks volumes. Even her closest allies began to distance themselves. Old collaborators, former co-stars, fashion partners, many wiped her name from bios, portfolios, or product lines. And inside the courtroom, the phrase used, again and again, was willful ignorance. The jury was starting to see the real story. Not just one of violence and manipulation, but of complicity, of choosing comfort over courage, of letting others pay the price for fame. By the close of Part 3, the prosecutor delivered a chilling statement. For every freak-off party, there was a guest list. She looked toward the press bench, and some of those guests were global icons. The message was clear. No one was too big to fall. As the trial entered its fourth week, it was no longer a courtroom drama. It was a cultural reckoning. What began as a probe into one man's abuses had now become an autopsy of an entire generation's celebrity myth. And at the center of it, all unspoken, unseen, but inescapable, was Jennifer Lopez. Every time a witness named her, gasps rippled through the gallery. Every time her image flashed across evidence screens, the courtroom held its breath. This wasn't a cameo. It was complicity. The federal prosecutors shifted focus. With Diddy's criminal empire already laid bare, their tone turned surgical. They no longer needed to prove intent. They were establishing routine, pattern, partnership. And Lopez's shadow loomed in every timeline. A former event planner testified about scheduling freak-off weekends. One name always had special clearance. She traveled under an alias, they said. But we all knew who it was. They referred to her only as the guest of glass. Why that name? Because nothing reflected back. Then came the audio. An encrypted file from a recovered laptop. The defense fought hard to block its admission, but the judge allowed a portion. In the clip, Diddy's voice is clear. "She's fine with it," he says. "She knows how this goes?" A female voice responds. "Light. Familiar. She said she's not coming unless the girl's over 18. Diddy laughs. "That's just for optics." It was brief, but it was enough. The courtroom exploded. Reporters rushed to file. Legal analysts froze mid-sentence. The public heard it hours later on podcasts, YouTube, TikTok. The voice allegedly Lopez's wasn't yelling, wasn't resisting, just negotiating. And in that moment, the last veil dropped. The judge declared a recess. Lopez trended worldwide, but she remained silent. Meanwhile, a growing coalition of women, including Cassie, Misha, and Natania, began giving joint statements. Not coordinated, not prepped, just raw accounts. Together. A reporter called it the undoing of the untouchables. For decades, women were told to stay silent. That naming names would end careers. That no one would believe them. Now, they were ending careers with truth. Back inside the courtroom, the defense tried one last pivot. They called a cultural historian to the stand, arguing that the 1999 era was a different time. That certain behaviors, while inappropriate today, were normalized then. That stars like J-Lo were under extreme industry pressure to comply. But the prosecution didn't flinch. They reminded the jury of the victims, of the bruises, of the 13-year-old, of the footage, the text, the money transfers. Culture is not a shield, the prosecutor said. It's not a cloak for cruelty. Then came the unsealing. Under pressure from multiple advocacy groups, the court approved the release of several sealed documents. Among them, transcripts from a 2002 internal bad boy meeting. Lopez was in attendance. Her notes were attached. One comment underlined in red media, misdirection in place. Tell them it was shine. We'll play silent. The jury didn't gasp. They simply nodded, as if the final piece had clicked into place. Outside, pressure mounted. Advocates demanded federal charges. J-Lo's attorney issued a second statement. Our client is being used as a scapegoat for a broken system. But no one bought it anymore. Petitions surged. Documentaries fast-tracked. Victims gained followers in the millions. And J-Lo, she was no longer Jenny from the block. She was Jane Doe number 2 in the People's Case file. Then finally, the unexpected happened. Diddy broke. On the stand, visibly fatigued and hollowed out, he confirmed elements of Cassie's testimony. Denied some. Waffled on others. But when asked if Lopez ever knew about the freak-offs, he didn't dodge. She helped pick locations, he said. And the girls? A pause. He looked down. I didn't ask her to bring them, but she knew why they were there. The courtroom went still. The silence wasn't empty. It was damning. With that, the prosecution rested. The trial wasn't over, but the message was. No one was above consequence. Not moguls. Not legends. Not icons draped in diamonds. By the time closing arguments began, Jennifer Lopez was no longer trending for her red carpet looks or concert tours. She was trending for her absence. And in a case fueled by silence, her vanishing act had become the loudest statement of all. The prosecution's final argument was direct. This trial isn't about what's legal. It's about what's right. And what happened in those clubs, those freak-offs, those cover-ups, was not right. They recapped every name, every bruise, every hush payment. And every time Jennifer Lopez could have said no, but didn't. The defense did what it could. They emphasized the lack of formal charges against Lopez. They portrayed her as a woman trapped in the orbit of a manipulative, powerful man. They pleaded for separation. Judge Diddy, not the people who stood beside him. But the jury wasn't just judging actions. They were judging choices. And, in the logic of this courtroom, silence was complicity. Then, the jury retired. The nation waited, 3 days passed, and then came the verdict. Guilty. Racketeering, sex trafficking, obstruction of justice, witness tampering. The courtroom erupted not in chaos, but in relief. Justice, long elusive, had found its way. And though Lopez wasn't on trial, she was on the record. The court of law had spoken. But the court of public opinion had been unanimous for weeks. Within hours, Lopez's PR team released a third statement. Jennifer Lopez continues to deny all allegations. She stands by her record of professional excellence and community service. It was too little, too late. Streaming numbers dropped, tour dates were canceled, talk shows pulled appearances, brand deals long hesitant officially dissolved. She hadn't been convicted, but she'd been convicted by culture. Then, the unthinkable shine from exile to vindication was offered a formal U.S. apology by a bipartisan congressional committee. Not a full pardon, but an acknowledgement. He declined to comment, but one of his aides said he just wants the truth to stand longer than the lie ever did. Cassie Misha and Natania launched a joint foundation. Its name, Witness to Power. Its mission support visibility and legal aid for victims of abuse by public figures. The first press conference was packed, not with journalists, but with survivors. And in the front row, holding the microphone with trembling fingers, Cassie said, "I told the truth because I wanted to be free. I didn't expect the world to change, but maybe we can start by changing who we call heroes." And what of Diddy's sentencing was swift. Life without parole for federal crimes. Multiple pending state charges to follow. His legacy archived. His empire liquidated. His name canceled not by trend, but by consensus. Jennifer Lopez returned to the U.S. under sealed arrangements. She was never handcuffed, never arraigned. But her testimony was taken. Behind closed doors, no video, no transcript. Just a headline. The next day, J-Lo cooperates with federal inquiry into Diddy trial. And that was it. No tours, no statements, no applause, just quiet. Because sometimes silence is how power hides. And sometimes silence is how it dies. This wasn't just a celebrity scandal. It was a cautionary tale about fame, fear, and the price of looking away. Cassie's voice broke the silence. And now, no one can say they didn't hear.